welcome back to the Larry Hembree pregame show. Thank you for listening, everybody. We're on our Where Are They Now segment, and I'm talking with 1946 graduate Bill Carter in his home in Evansville, Indiana. Bill, how are you this evening?
Fine, thank you.
Bill, you graduated in 1946. Who were some of the ball players that you remember playing with back in those years?
Oh, gosh. Just thinking here, some of the Calvin Beasley, Russ Jones, Lauren Walton, Ray Patterson, Dave Walker, Paul Bruner, Buddy Burr, George Patterson, Skip Weilman, Frank Damp. That's pretty much the nucleus of the teams there from 44 to 46.
Well, that's some familiar names, of course. Paul Bruner, my uncle. What do you remember about Paul and his ball playing?
Paul and I go way back to about the 5th, 6th grade in grade school. Paul was a year behind me, and we played together through grade school and in high school, of course. And Paul played 4 years in high school. He made the varsity as a freshman and was probably the most pure shooter that we had that I ever played with. I mean, he was truly then a pure shooter.
Well, he had a nickname, didn't he? What did they call him?
Deadeye.
Deadeye. Well, I tell you. That's a good one to have if you're a shooter, I guess.
Right.
And, of course, also you mentioned a couple other names, George Patterson. What do you remember about George?
Well, I tell you what. Again, George was a year behind me in school. He was a junior. Now, he lost his sophomore year because he transferred during his sophomore year, from his freshman year to his sophomore year, to Loogootee. And the ISHAA rejected him playing as a sophomore. I often thought that they should have went ahead and played him at least on the reserve team, even if they went with a 0-20 record, because he would, of course, he did practice with us and everything. But his junior year, he was an outstanding player in his junior and senior year, and I tell you, for his height and everything, he was a tremendous rebounder.
Yeah, and of course, George, he's still around town. And now, Billy, who was your coach in 1946, or the years that you played?
Okay, we had a unique situation. Costi was our coach. My coach in my freshman year in 43. Then Costi left, came to Evansville to teach and to coach, and we had A.J. Kreitzer in 1944 and 1945, and then Costi came back in 46. So I had him in my freshman year and my senior year.
Now, you won some sectionals when you played ball for Loogootee then, right?
We won the 2 Wabash Valley sectionals in my junior and senior year, 45 and 46, yes.
Okay, and you made it to the semifinal rounds against Bridgeport, or is that the region?
I was thinking we went against. In fact, when we went up in 45, we played Linton, and Linton at that time that was rated 9th in the state, and they only rated 10 teams at that time in the state, and Linton was number 9, and we were fortunate enough to beat Linton. And we went against Robinson in the semifinal game there. Garfield of Terre Haute was in it with Clyde LaBelle at that time, and but we had some problems. Dave Walker, who was not only our outstanding player on the team that year, but he won the most valuable player award that year in the Wabash Valley. But Dave fouled out of the game. Ray Patterson got hurt in the game. Russ Jones got into foul trouble early, and we played most of that game with about 3 of our better subs in the game, and we had some good subs in that game that day, and but we couldn't handle it. We lost that, and then the following year, in 46, we ran into a real tough Bridgeport team, and we lost in the first round.
Well, late last year I interviewed Mr. Welker on this very program and had a chance to talk to him. He went to IU and played for a while up there.
He played at IU. In fact, in his freshman year, he even started for IU in several games, and I can remember him going against Paulie Hoffman of Purdue, who was an All-American at Purdue, and I think a senior at the time when Dave was a freshman, and he really was an outstanding ball player, yes.
Well, Bill, I know you're still a big Loogootee fan. Is that true?
Oh, very definitely. I'm prejudiced.
And you get back occasionally. You've been back this year to see games. What possesses you to keep wanting to watch a Loogootee basketball game some 53 years after you graduated from high school?
Well, I tell you what, again, I say I'm a little bit prejudiced, and I'm a little bit prejudiced when I talk about Jack Butcher. I think he's, without doubt, the most outstanding high school coach in the state of Indiana, and has been for many years. And I just think back, and I thought, gee whiz, if they'd have gone to that the format that they have now in the state tournament, how many state championships would the Lions have?
They'd have several, wouldn't they?
Yes, they would. They'd have several. And even though I'm kind of a traditionalist and everything, I really didn't care for the class basketball. But by the same token, I'm kind of starting to mellow a little bit. I think I like it a little bit more than I did.
Well, you're a little bit prejudiced because I guess maybe growing up, you and Jack lived pretty close vicinity to each other, didn't you?
Right. We lived next door to each other. Yeah. Yeah. He was the little kid next door. We used to have a what we call the Southside Stadium. I don't know if you've ever heard of it or not.
No, I haven't. What'd you tell us about that?
The Southside Stadium was an old canning factory, tomato canning factory, that had burnt down. It was right by the railroad track in the south part of town there. And there was a concrete floor still there. And we played, well, I tell you what, it got so bad, it used to get so rough up there that I can remember Costi saying one time, and of course Costi's most harsh words were, by golly. And he says, by golly, if you guys keep getting banged up down there at that Southside Stadium, I'm going to have to put it off limits. But Jack used to be the little kid to come up there, and we wouldn't let him play. Maybe if when everybody got tired, you let him shoot around a little bit. But just a fantastic player. And I think one time Paul Arvin made a statement about a player that played for Winslow by the name of Dick Farley, who became an All-American at IU. And he had seen him play, and I'd never seen Dick Farley play at that time. And I said to Paul, Paul, is he really a good player? And he said, he's the type of player that can beat you without scoring a point. And I thought about that for a long time, what he meant. But and then when Jack was playing, I mean, he was that type of player. Jack could score 25 points one night and beat you, or he could score 5 points the next night and beat you, because he did so many little things that, just made a great ball player.
Well, you mentioned Paul Arvin. What's he meant to Loogootee basketball over the years?
Paul Arvin, to me, probably is the greatest fan that Loogootee's ever had. And probably a lot of people don't realize it, but Paul Arvin, for many years, held the school record, scoring record as far as a single game record. I think he had 33 points when he was playing in one game, and I think that was a school record for many years.
Well, Paul, of course, helped Jack and many Loogootee players through the years kind of find their way and make sure that they had, adequate opportunity so they could play basketball. I know Jack worked there at the theater, and I think Paul helped Junior G and many others through the years.
Yes, I'm sure he did.
Right. Well, Bill, I also, now, Tuesday night, you were saying you were hoping you could make it up here to see Loogootee play North Knox. It's a big conference game. If the Lions win this game, they'll be the outright champs in the Blue Chip Conference. You think you can make it up?
I'm going to try very hard to make it up. I certainly am, because I think it'll be a great game. North Knox has got a very good ball club, and I'm impressed with the Lions. I saw them against Bloomfield, and you say, well, they had an off night against Bloomfield. This Bloomfield team very definitely is a state contender, no doubt about it. At least they go the first five. They go real tough.
Well, Billy, I can assure you, sitting on the bench this year, that I've seen the Lions play a lot better this year than they played against Bloomfield. It was a tough night for them, but
right.
We play a big Mitchell team tonight, and again, the Lions have kind of developed a slowdown game this year that they're running very effectively. In fact, I haven't seen the Lions team run it better than since maybe their 75 team, which they were famous for going to the state. Were you around in 75?
Oh yes, yeah, I got to see it all in 75, and even that final game when they were beaten by Marion, I couldn't be anything but proud of Jack and all the team. I thought they did tremendously.
Well, the Lions took Evansville by storm that year too, didn't they?
Yes, they did. They sure did.
I don't think I ever witnessed a finer basketball game than the game that they played against Seymour in the final game of the Semi-State.
That was when Bill handed the ball to his dad as he was coming down the floor at the end of it.
Right. It was unbelievable.
I'll never forget that.
And, of course, it was exciting as well in 1970 when the Lions won their first regional, and they came down and won their first semi-state, and they beat it. Seymour's had some tough luck against the Lions down at Evansville, I think.
Yes, they have.
Billy, when you graduated, why don't you tell us what kind of in a nutshell, what you've been up to and what happened to you all these years later?
Well, I spent 31 years in the trucking industry and sales and management. I'm semi-retired now. I own a small company that distributes out-of-town newspapers into the Evansville area. And a lot of people said, well, the only reason you do that is so you can see the sports sections from all over the country. And I said, well, that's true in a way. But I still keep active, and I just enjoy life, and I enjoy high school basketball, and, of course, most of all, seeing the Lions win. And I'm kind of waiting to see that 760th victory, which I know is going to come up pretty soon.
Well, hopefully, if the Lions don't lose any more games and can win the semi-state, it'll happen this year, or if not, it'll happen early next year. Kind of in closing, just kind of a philosophical question, Billy, but obviously sports is important to you, and playing basketball at Loogootee was important to you. Just what did it mean to you to have an opportunity to play basketball here at Loogootee High School?
I think the greatest moment in my life was in my sophomore year when I was handed a jersey, and I knew I'd made the varsity. I don't think there's ever been anything else that's equal that feeling that I had that night.
Well, Bill, I tell you, that's something I know it's special to everyone around the country, but it just seems like here at Loogootee, it's just something about playing basketball at Loogootee that's always been something extra special, and it's gentlemen like yourself who have the provide us the courtesy to come and talk about Loogootee basketball. There's a great many people enjoy hearing about the tradition of Loogootee basketball, and you're certainly part of it. And we want to thank you this evening for taking the time to talk to us. I hope I get to meet you Tuesday night at the ball game. If you're up, I'll be looking for you. And wish you the best of luck.
Well, thank you very much. It's been my pleasure, Larry.
Billy, have a good day.
Thank you. Bye-bye.